Have you ever sat in a room full of people and felt invisible, no texts returned, no calls answered, no shoulders to lean on, and you wonder, where is the support, where is the love, why does no one see me struggling? But here is the twist, maybe, that is exactly the point. You see, when the world grows silent, it is not punishment, it is permission, permission for you to listen to something deeper, something that has always been speaking quietly beneath the noise, your own voice. And this voice does not beg, it does not plead, it does not wait for rescue, it rises. This speech is not about learning how to get others to love you. It is about learning how to stop needing them to. Stay until the end, and you will see that what you thought was isolation is actually initiation. The moment you rise alone, you rise for real. Many people live under a powerful illusion that their worth is reflected in the eyes of others. That love from another makes them lovable, that applause means they are enough. But what happens when that illusion fades, when the people disappear, when the phone doesn't ring, when you're left with nothing but silence and shadows? That, dear listener, is not your end, that is your beginning, because the real man, the awakened man, does not build his soul on shaky ground. He learns that support is nice but not necessary. Love is beautiful but not required for self-worth. Think of a seed buried deep in the soil. It is surrounded by darkness, no one watches it, no one claps for it, yet it grows. It does not ask, where is the sun? It reaches for the sun, it does not say, where is the rain? It opens when it comes. And when the time is right, it breaks not because someone gave it permission, but because breaking is how it becomes. You too must break. The pain of abandonment, of rejection, of walking alone, this is not a sign of weakness. It is the forging fire of clarity. If everyone loved you, supported you, lifted you, you'd never discover how strong you are on your own. There is a sacred silence that speaks louder than all the noise. It says, this is your path, walk it. Not to impress, not to prove, but because it is yours. You could blame the world, you could curse the sky, you could ask why nobody helped, or you could rise anyway. You could decide that everything you need is already inside you, that every rejection is redirection, that every closed door is a challenge not to knock harder, but to build your own. The moment you accept full responsibility, not just for your actions, but your existence, you reclaim all your power. When you no longer seek recognition, you become truly noticeable. Your energy changes. Your presence deepens. You are no longer desperate, you are whole. A real man rises not to be admired, but because rising is who he is. He walks alone, not because no one loves him, but because he finally loves himself enough not to wait. So if you find yourself in that dark space, unsupported, unloved, uninvited, don't despair. You've been given the rarest opportunity to rise alone, and when you do, not only will you find your strength, you'll find that you never truly needed them at all. Solitude is not loneliness, it is a rite of initiation. When a man is stripped of comfort, connection, and praise, something ancient stirs within him. At first the silence feels cruel. It echoes with doubt, with fear, with the ache of absence. But slowly something changes. He begins to hear a different voice, not from the world outside, but from the core of his being. This is not the voice of desire or ambition. It is the voice of presence, of awareness, of knowing. When there is no one left to lean on, you stop leaning, you learn to stand, and that standing, shaky at first, becomes a rooted strength. People often confuse solitude with punishment, as if to be alone is to be unloved, forgotten, or broken. But solitude, in its rawest form, is sacred. It is the environment where transformation occurs, where the mask falls, and where the man beneath is revealed. Every culture that ever initiated men into manhood did not do so with comfort and praise. They led them into the wilderness, into darkness, into silence, not to torture them, but to awaken them, because there, without distraction, a man meets the truth of who he is. No mirrors, no titles, no applause, just himself, and that confrontation, though terrifying, is essential. When a man walks through that fire and comes out the other side, he is no longer a seeker, he is found. Not because he discovered something outside of himself, but because he finally looked within. The modern world has dulled this truth. It has convinced men that they must always be connected, always affirmed, always supported. But support can become a crutch, praise can become a drug, and constant love can become dependency. A real man is born in the moment he realizes he does not need it, not because he has grown hard, but because he has grown whole. Solitude gives birth to that wholeness. It forces a man to dig into his own soil, to plant his own roots, and to discover a strength that no applause can grant and no rejection can take away. In that sacred space, alone but not lost, a man does not wait to be chosen. He chooses himself. The illusion of needing external validation is one of the most persistent traps in the modern mind. From the moment we are young, we are trained to seek approval from parents, from teachers, from peers. And as we grow, that hunger for affirmation doesn't fade, it evolves. It takes the form of likes, followers, compliments, and attention. Slowly, and often without realizing it, we begin to define our worth by how others respond to us. If they love us, we feel lovable. If they applaud us, we feel valuable. If they ignore us, we feel invisible. This dependence becomes a quiet addiction, and like all addictions, it leaves us hollow. The tragedy is not that we want to be seen, but that we forget how to see ourselves. A real man is not one who performs for applause. He is one who acts from a place of stillness, rooted in the knowledge that his value is not determined by outside voices. When you break free from the illusion of needing others to validate your existence, an immense freedom opens up. You are no longer swayed by public opinion, by praise or criticism. You do not become arrogant, you become anchored. You are not a boat tossed by the waves of approval, but the ocean itself. This shift does not mean you reject love or connection. It means you no longer require them to feel complete. You stop asking, "Do they see me?" and start asking, "Do I see myself clearly?" In that clarity, everything changes. Your actions become sincere, not strategic. Your confidence comes from alignment, not applause, and your presence becomes powerful, not because you chase validation, but because you emanate authenticity. Those who still seek approval may not understand you. They may even resent your detachment. But that is the cost of freedom, the cost of truth. To stand firm in who you are without permission, without endorsement, without applause, is to reclaim your soul from the marketplace of public opinion. When a man no longer needs to be seen, he becomes someone worth seeing. When he no longer asks for love, he becomes love in motion. And when he no longer requires support, he discovers a deeper power, the power of self-respect that cannot be taken, because it was never borrowed. The pain of isolation is not a punishment, it is a transformation. When a man finds himself alone, without companionship, without comfort, without the gentle words of someone who understands, he is not being broken down, he is being remade. In that aching silence where no one calls, no one cares, and no one comes, he confronts the most unfiltered parts of himself. The moments that burn the most, that feel like abandonment or failure, are often the sacred turning points where a man discovers what he's truly made of. Pain, in this context, is not the enemy, it is the teacher. It strips away pretense, strips away ego, strips away the stories we tell ourselves to survive, and in that rawness there is truth. When you are alone, you cannot hide. You cannot distract. There is no applause, no hand to hold, no voice to say, "You're doing great." There is just you, and that is exactly where transformation begins, not in the presence of others, but in their absence. A man becomes something else entirely when he walks through isolation and does not run from it. When he doesn't numb it, doesn't deny it, but allows it to wash over him like a purifying fire. Because that's what it is, a fire that burns away dependency, expectation, and illusion. On the other side of it, there is something unshakable. The man who has known that depth of pain and has stood in it without collapsing becomes a force. He no longer fears rejection because he has already felt the cold sting of being left behind, and he survived. He no longer needs to be carried because he has learned to walk when no one was watching. He no longer begs for belonging because he has found his own company to be enough. Pain initiates the journey into strength. Not the surface-level strength of muscles or bravado, but the inner resilience that radiates silently. It is the kind of strength that cannot be taken because it was never given by another. It emerged from within, earned through fire, born in solitude. And that man, refined by silence, hardened by pain, awakened by isolation, is not merely surviving, he is becoming. Nature has always whispered the truth, the seed breaks alone. It does not rise into the world with comfort or applause. It does not have a crowd cheering it on beneath the soil. In fact, it is covered in darkness, pressed down by the weight of the earth, and entirely unseen. Yet still it pushes, still it grows. Not because anyone tells it to, not because it is guaranteed sunlight or rain, but because there is something within it that insists on rising. A man's journey is no different. We often wait for the right moment, the right support, the perfect conditions before we act. But life was never meant to hand us ideal circumstances. The nature of growth is resistance. The nature of strength is solitude. The truth is, no one is coming to rescue you. No one is coming to validate your dream or hold your hand through every difficult chapter. And the moment you stop expecting that the moment you truly understand, that is the moment you begin to rise for real, like the seed, you must crack open from within. That cracking is not weakness. It is creation. It is the force of life pressing outward, through pressure, through pain, into purpose. Most people avoid that moment because it is uncomfortable, it is lonely, it feels like something is going wrong. But in reality, it is the most natural thing in the world. Just as the tree does not question why it must break free from its shell, the man must not question why the path is hard and uncelebrated. To rise alone is not tragic. It is sacred, it is a return to what is essential. You stop performing, you stop pretending, you stop waiting, and you start becoming. In those quiet, unglamorous hours where no one believes in you, no one supports you, and no one sees what you're fighting for you either break apart or break open, the seed does not need permission. It only needs to trust what is already within, and so do you. The darkness above it is temporary. The soil that surrounds it is not a cage, it is preparation. And when it rises, it does so not because the world invited it, but because rising is in its nature. You can curse the world for not supporting you, or you can thank it for setting you free. This is the great turning point in a man's life, the moment he realizes he has a choice. When everything around you seems to ignore your struggle, when those you once counted on vanish into silence, the temptation is to fall into bitterness, to believe the world owes you something, to look at those who didn't show up and feel anger burning in your chest. But that anger, left unchecked, becomes a prison. It traps you in a story where you are powerless, where you are forever waiting for someone else to make things right. What if, instead, you shifted the lens? What if the absence of support was not cruelty, but clarity? What if no one was supposed to show up, not because you're unworthy, but because this chapter was meant to be walked alone? There is a kind of strength that only reveals itself in solitude. A kind of self-belief that only emerges when there is no echo of encouragement, no guiding hand, no comforting voice. In that space, the excuses fall away. You stop blaming, you stop explaining, you start acting. That's where responsibility enters, not the dry, joyless kind, but the sacred kind. Responsibility is the quiet realization that this is your life, not your parents', not your friends', not your partner's. Yours, and if it's yours, then the direction it takes is no longer dictated by others. You are free, not in theory, but in the most visceral way possible. You are free to rise, not because someone lifted you, but because you decided to stand. This kind of power is not noisy, it does not shout, it does not demand attention. It moves quietly, with dignity, like a river carving through stone. When you stop resenting what wasn't given to you and start honoring what you can give to yourself, the entire world begins to shift. Not because the world changed, but because you did, you became the source, you became the answer, and in that space where dependence dies and responsibility is born, you discover what it truly means to be a man. The silent strength of presence is something the world rarely teaches, but every real man must discover for himself. It's not about loud declarations, flashy achievements, or constant motion. It's about being able to walk into a room and change the energy without saying a word. This strength is not found in striving, it's found in stillness. When a man no longer needs to prove himself, when he no longer seeks permission to exist, he begins to embody something powerful: presence. Most people chase visibility. They want to be seen, heard, noticed, admired, but presence is the opposite of performance. It doesn't shout, "Look at me." It whispers, "I am here," and that is enough. This kind of presence is earned in silence. It is forged in the quiet places, in the lonely nights, in the hours no one else sees. It's what rises in a man when he's faced his fears, survived his disappointments, and kept moving forward with no one cheering him on. When a man rises alone, he stops needing to be loud. He doesn't need to post every success, explain every decision, or defend his worth. His actions speak. His energy speaks. He carries a calm that others feel but can't quite name. And in a world addicted to noise and validation, that calm is magnetic. People are drawn to it, not because it tries to impress, but because it reveals something rare, someone who is rooted, not restless. A man with true presence doesn't seek to dominate others. He's not driven by the need to be right, to be liked, or to be worshipped. He simply knows who he is, and that knowing carries weight. It creates space. It invites others to drop their masks, because in his presence there is nothing to prove. This is the paradox: the less you seek to be noticed, the more powerful your presence becomes. And this is not something you can fake. It's not built in a day. It's built in every choice to keep going without recognition, to stay grounded when the world tells you to chase attention, to remain silent when you could easily shout. The man who rises alone becomes undeniable, not because he asked to be, but because he already is. So, in the end, if you find yourself unsupported, unloved, unnoticed, understand this is not your curse, but your call. The world may not lift you, but that doesn't mean you were meant to stay down. You were never supposed to be carried. You were meant to rise. And not because someone believed in you, but because you finally believed in yourself. The real man does not wait to be rescued, applauded, or understood. He walks forward through silence, through rejection, through darkness, and in doing so, he becomes unshakable. No support, no love, no problem. Because once you've risen alone, you realize you never needed anything but the fire already burning inside you.